At our family's New Year's Eve dinner on December 30th, my dad stood up with his glass raised, already half drunk, and looked straight at me. Hey everyone, let's toast to the new year. And Tatum, when are you finally going to own a lake house like your sister? Or are you planning to rent forever? The whole table of 20 people burst out laughing. My sister smirked and flicked her hair. I set my glass down slowly and said just loud enough for everyone to hear. Actually, she doesn't own that lake house the way you think she does. Dead silence. My dad froze mid-sip. My sister's face went white as paper. You could have heard a pin drop. That was the first time in 26 years I saw my father completely speechless. If you've ever been the family punching bag while someone else got all the praise, stick around until the very end. Trust me, you're going to want to see how this went through. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next. Growing up on the east side of Columbia, South Carolina, our house always had one sun and one shadow. The sun was my older sister, Sierra. The shadow was me. Sierra came into the world 4 years before I did and immediately took over every room she entered. She had this loud electric laugh, the kind that made grown-ups turn around and smile before they even saw her face. She knew exactly when to hug, when to pout, when to throw her arms wide and tell a story that had everyone leaning in. My dad, Gerald, lived for that performance. My mom, Diane, just stood behind him and clapped along. The clearest proof of the hierarchy came the summer Sierra turned 12. Gerald rented the entire community pool for a Saturday afternoon. He hired a real DJ, ordered a 3-tier fondant cake with edible gold flakes, booked a photographer, and invited every kid from her middle school class, plus half the neighborhood. They were custom balloons, a rented lounge chairs, and a snow cone machine that ran nonstop. I was 8. My birthday landed 3 weeks later. I got a plain Walmart sheet cake with plastic roses on top and 8 candles. Gerald handed me the knife and said, "Cut fast, Tatum. Don't drag attention away from your sister's big weekend." I blew out my candles under the harsh kitchen light while Sierra's friends were still screaming and splashing next door. That single afternoon taught me the exact size of my place in the family. The pattern repeated in 1,000 small ways. Sierra got the bigger bedroom the day we moved into the new house, even though I was older and should have chosen first. Gerald's reason was blunt. Sierra has more personality. She needs space to breathe. My room was the narrow one at the end of the hall, with one tiny window that looked straight into the neighbor's brick wall. I never once complained. Complaints only earned me the label jealous. School report cards were another public scoreboard. Sierra brought home mostly B's and 1 C in math. Gerald threw an actual backyard cookout to celebrate her natural leadership and magnetic presence. I came home the same semester with straight A's and perfect attendance. He glanced at the paper, gave a single nod, and said, "That's your job, Tatum. Stay out of trouble." Then he spent the rest of dinner mapping out Sierra's future like she was already on magazine covers. I tested the system exactly once. I was 10. I asked why Sierra got praised for average grades while my perfect ones got nothing. Gerald laughed out loud, ruffled my hair hard enough to hurt, and announced to the whole table, because Sierra is the future of this family, Tatum just needs to stay quiet and behave. Diane pulled me aside later, gave a quick hug and whispered, "He doesn't really mean it," but the words were already carved into me. After that night, I stopped showing anyone my grades. I stopped asking for anything at all. By middle school, the rules were unbreakable. Sierra got new clothes every season, the newest iPhone on release day, and an allowance that felt like a paycheck. I wore her hand-me-downs until the seams gave out, rocked a flip phone until junior year of high school, and received $20 a week for being responsible. When I finally got a smartphone, it was Sierra's 2-generation-old model with a spider-webbed screen. Gerald called it building character. Weekends were the loudest reminder. Sierra's friends filled the house constantly, music thumping, pizza boxes piling up, laughter spilling out every window. I stayed in my room with headphones on. If I ever dared walk through the living room during one of her gatherings, Gerald would bark, "Tatum, go find something useful to do. Stop hovering." So I vanished. It was easier. The Christmas I was 14 sealed it forever. Sierra unwrapped a brand new MacBook Pro and a diamond pendant because she's going places. I opened a $20 Target gift card and a lecture about gratitude. I said thank you, went to my room, and didn't come out until January 2nd. That was the moment I fully accepted the truth. Competing only made me look petty. Staying invisible hurt less. So I perfected invisibility. I could sit through an entire family dinner without uttering one word, and no one thought it was odd. I learned to smile when Gerald bragged about Sierra's destiny, and nod when Diane called me the dependable one. I learned that if I never wanted anything, nobody could deny me. The silence started as a child's defense mechanism. By high school, it had hardened into armor. Heavy, uncomfortable, but mine. I wore it every single day and never once took it off, because in the Reeves house, the spotlight belonged to Sierra, and the shadows were built for me. When it came time for college, the difference between Sierra and me went from a gap to canyon. Sierra got accepted to Clemson University with a partial academic scholarship. Gerald and Diane immediately stepped in and paid the rest. Full tuition, room and board, sorority fees, plus a brand new off-campus apartment in a luxury student complex. They also handed her a credit card with a $5,000 limit and told her to live a little. Her move-in day looked like a magazine shoot. New BMW parked out front, monogrammed bedding, a going-away party at the country club with a custom ice sculpture that spelled her name. My path looked nothing like that. I enrolled at Midlands Technical College, 20 minutes from home, because in-state community college was basically free if you hunted down every scholarship and grant to cover books, gas, and the tiny fees left over. I worked 3 jobs at the same time. I was up at 4:30 a.m. stocking shelves at the Walmart on Harbison Boulevard. After classes, I drove Uber Eats until 1 a.m. Weekends, I tutored high school kids in AP Computer Science for $50 an hour, cash. I survived on 4 hours of sleep, instant noodles, and sheer stubbornness. And I still kept a perfect 4.0 GPA. 2 years later, I transferred to UNC Charlotte with another stack of scholarships I'd applied for in secret. I graduated in 2020 with a computer science degree and exactly $11,000 in student loan debt. Sierra graduated the same spring owing $0 and celebrated with a rented yacht party on Lake Norman that cost more than my entire degree. That was just the beginning of the silence I kept about money. In the middle of the pandemic, when companies were desperate for remote engineers, I landed a mid-level software engineer role at a fast-growing fintech startup based in Austin, fully remote. Starting salary, $128,000, plus meaningful equity that vested over 4 years. By early 2023, I'd been promoted to senior engineer, and the total compensation hit $165,000, with the stock climbing every quarter. It was the kind of money that changes lives. But my family never heard the real number. Every time Gerald asked what I was pulling in, I shrugged and said around 65, maybe 70 on a good year. Remote jobs don't pay like they used to. He'd grunt, nod like that confirmed everything he already believed, and change the subject back to Sierra's latest big opportunity that never quite materialized. I lied for 2 reasons. First, I was terrified that the moment they knew the truth, the requests would start. Help with the mortgage, a down payment for Sierra's future business, whatever. Second, and honestly worse, I didn't want to hand Gerald the satisfaction of another comparison. I could already hear it. Steve and Tatum figured it out once she stopped being lazy. I refused to give him that win, so I kept living like someone making $65,000 in Charlotte. I rented a cramped 400-square-foot studio in an aging complex in Valentine. Paper-thin walls, stained carpet, window unit that sounded like a jet engine. My furniture consisted of a mattress on the floor, a $30 desk from Facebook Marketplace, and 1 plastic lawn chair. I still drove the same beat-up silver 2009 Toyota Corolla I'd bought at 17 with tutoring money. The paint was oxidized, the check engine light had been on for 3 years, and the driver's side window only went down halfway, but it started every morning. When I went home for Christmas or Thanksgiving, I wore the same 3 faded hoodies in heavy rotation and complained about rent increases nobody actually believed existed. Diane would squeeze my hand and say, "It'll get better, sweetie." Gerald would shake his head and mutter about kids these days not knowing how to hustle. They bought every word. Meanwhile, the real money stacked up in silence, direct deposit every 2 weeks. Stock units vesting, maxed out 401k, maxed out Roth IRA, and still 6 figures growing in a high-yield account under only my name. I've paid off those $11,000 in loans in 18 months and never mentioned it. The armor of silence I'd built as a kid had evolved. It wasn't just protection anymore. It was perfect camouflage. And for those first few years out of college, the camouflage worked without a single crack. The winter of 2020-2021 became the turning point I had never dared to name out loud. The luxury market around Lake Murray had gone ice cold. Interest rates had spiked, out-of-state buyers vanished, and listings that once sold in a weekend now collected dust for 6 months. One particular property appeared in my private saved search alerts and refused to leave. A 5-bedroom, 5.5-bath contemporary waterfront on a protected cove with 180 feet of shoreline. It had a private deep-water dock with covered boat lift, a 1,200-square-foot rooftop terrace that wrapped 3 sides of the house, floor-to-ceiling retractable glass walls facing west, an elevator, a 4-car epoxy-floored garage, and a negative edge pool that looked like it spilled straight into the lake. Original asking price, $2,300,000. By mid-December, the owner, a retired cardiologist relocating permanently to Naples, Florida, had slashed it to $1,800,000 just to unload it before the January property tax bill hit. I submitted a full price offer on December 27th, 40% down in certified funds, 15-year fixed mortgage at the pandemic low rate of 2.6%, cash closing within 15 days, no contingencies except clear title. He accepted within 4 hours. We closed electronically on January 8th, 2021. My personal name never touched the deed. My maternal grandmother, Margaret Reeves, had passed away in 2018. Her revocable living trust automatically converted to irrevocable at death, and her will named me sole successor trustee with explicit authority to acquire, hold, and manage real and personal property for the benefit of her descendants without court supervision. I retained an estate planning attorney in Greenville who drafted a new single-purpose irrevocable trust titled Margaret Reeves Irrevocable Asset Trust 2021, listing my deceased grandmother as grantor and me as trustee. The warranty deed was recorded directly to the trust. My name never appeared on the HUD-1, the mortgage note, the title insurance policy, the homeowner's insurance binder, or the Lexington County tax rolls. To every public record in the United States, the owner was a trust named after a woman who had been in the ground for 3 years. Renovation began the week after closing. I paid cash for every line item demolished. The dated brass and marble installed 7-inch European white oak flooring throughout, replaced all countertops with honed Taj Mahal quartzite, installed matte black fixtures and hardware, added a full Crestron home automation system with hidden speakers and motorized shades, upgraded to impact-rated hurricane glass, replaced both HVAC units with high-efficiency variable speed systems, rebuilt the dock with maintenance-free composite decking, underwater LED lighting, and a new covered boat lift rated for $12,000, and a dual jet ski floating lift. The pool got new diamond bright finish and a hidden cover. Total renovation cost $328,000, paid in 4 wire transfers from the trust's dedicated account. Every contractor signed a 1-page NDA stating the owner lived abroad and wished to remain anonymous. I visited the site exactly twice, both times in a rented gray Camry wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses, paid invoices the same day they landed, and never lingered. By October 2021, the house was flawless, staged with high-end neutral furniture and ready for luxury rental. I onboarded Lydia Brooks, a licensed property manager with 15 years in the high-end market. She handled marketing, private placement only, applicant screening, lease, execution, rent collection, maintenance, coordination, quarterly inspections, and all tenant interaction. Rent went to her LLC, then swept into the trust accounts the same day. Lydia and I never met in person. All communication stayed inside an encrypted client portal registered to the trust. She believed she worked for a discreet family office based in Charleston. She was not wrong. just missing one detail. Back in the real world, the camouflage remained airtight. I still pulled into the driveway at my parents' house in the same peeling Corolla. Gerald still asked every single visit if I had finally started making decent money. I still answered, "Getting there, Dad," and let the silence swallow the rest. Diane still pressed folded 20s into my palm for gas or groceries. Sierra still scrolled Pinterest lake house boards and sighed dramatically about one day. None of them had the slightest clue that the exact house in those screenshots already belonged to the trust I controlled. The first full year of ownership was textbook. Lydia leased it furnished to a relocating pharmaceutical VP for $12,000 a month on a 2-year term. Mortgage, taxes, insurance, and maintenance were covered with cash flow left over. The house appreciated another $280,000 simply by existing. I studied every monthly photo report. Fresh orchids on the island, shoes aligned, no damage, and kept my face completely neutral whenever the topic of lake life came up at family gatherings. The secret was locked tighter than a vault, and I was the only living person who held the combination. 2 complete, uneventful years rolled by in that same silent rhythm. Invisible ownership, invisible equity, invisible power. Until one ordinary Tuesday morning when everything tilted. One random Tuesday morning in July 2023, an email from Lydia Brooks popped up with the subject, "New application, Lake Murray waterfront." I opened it and felt the air leave my lungs. Primary applicant, Sierra Reeves. Co-applicant, Giselle Vaughn. Combined verifiable annual income, $426,000. Requested lease term, 24 months. Requested move-in, August 1st. Lydia only marketed the house through private channels. No public MLS, no Zillow, no yard sign. She sent the password-protected link exclusively to prospects who could document serious money. Sierra had obviously piggybacked on Giselle, whose old Charleston shipping fortune was the kind of name that opened every door in South Carolina. Their attached cover letter was Peak Sierra. "We're ready for a signature lakefront property that reflects our personal brand and elevated living. We will treat the home like the jewel it is." I stared at the screen for a full 5 minutes, then typed a single-line reply. "Approved. Proceed with lease." They moved in exactly 3 weeks later. Within 48 hours, Sierra's Instagram became a full-time lake house commercial. First post, golden hour drone footage. Gliding over the dock, her and Giselle on matching lounge chairs, rosé glasses raised. Caption, Chapter 30 starts here. My lake house, my peace. No mention of rent. No mention of a landlord. Every photo, reel, and story was staged to scream ownership. Lake life unlocked. Home sweet home. Living my truth. The family group chat exploded. Gerald sent voice notes that lasted minutes. "Did you see your sister's place? That dock, that view? That's how you do it." Diane forwarded every picture with hearty emojis. I replied with a simple thumbs up and went back to my laptop. For the first 18 months, the rent landed like clockwork. $11,500 on the first of every month, wired directly from Giselle's trust disbursement account. Lydia's quarterly inspection reports showed the house spotless, fresh orchids on the double island, designer shoes lined up by the door, not a fingerprint on the glass railings. Then spring 2024 hit, and everything cracked. The April payment arrived 4 days late. May was 12 days late. In early June, the relationship imploded in spectacular fashion. Mutual unfollows, deleted couple photos, cryptic stories about snakes and fake love. By the end of June, the rent was a full month behind. Lydia sent the standard courtesy reminder. Sierra responded with a 4-paragraph email about unexpected brand deal delays and a temporary cash flow hiccup. July brought only a partial wire of $4,000 and a promise to square up next week. August arrived. Nothing. September? Nothing. October? Nothing. The balance climbed past $48,000. Sierra replaced Giselle with Jackson Hall before the sheets were cold. Jackson was 6'3", built like a comic book character, and twice as loud on social media. He moved in without ever being added to the lease. The monthly inspection photos shifted overnight. Empty Veuve Clicquot bottles on the quartzsite island. Muddy timberlands on the white oak floors. Random influencers taking mirror selfies in my master bathroom at 3 a.m. Red cup parties spilling onto the rooftop terrace. Lydia flagged the unauthorized occupant and the delinquency in every report. I told her to follow standard late fee protocol, but hold off on formal eviction filings. Sierra kept posting like the house was paid off in full. 4th of July fireworks shot from the dock. Labor Day weekend with an inflatable unicorn the size of a car. Halloween party with a catered oyster bar on the lower deck. Christmas 2024, she hired a company to wrap the entire dock and boat lift in synchronized LED lights. Every caption screamed ownership. Grateful for my home every single day. This view is mine forever. Jackson took the flexing to another level. Every time a cousin posted a new car, a vacation, or even a decent steak dinner, he'd throw up a story with the lake sparkling behind him and text overlay, "Stay mad, you'll never touch this level." The era was never subtle. Thanksgiving 2024 was the worst display yet. Sierra FaceTimed from the rooftop terrace wearing a floor-length white faux fur coat, panning slowly across the lake, glittering with the holiday lights she'd paid $5,000 to have installed. Gerald had the phone volume maxed so the entire dining room could hear her gush about how magical it feels to host holidays in our forever home. When the call ended, he looked straight at me across the turkey and said, "That's what winning looks like, Tatum. Maybe one day you'll get there." I smiled, said maybe, and started stacking plates. Inside, the air ridge counter kept ticking, $48,000 and climbing. Lydia asked twice in writing if I wanted to initiate formal eviction proceedings. Both times I replied, not yet, because the moment I had waited for, without ever admitting it, was finally close enough to touch. December 30th arrived cold and clear. The old house in Columbia was stuffed with 20 people, parents, aunts, uncles, Gerald's 4 closest golf buddies, Diane's book club ladies, cousins I hadn't seen since high school, Sierra and Jackson dressed in matching cream cashmere like they'd walked off a Ralph Lauren shoot. The dining room table had every leaf added, white tablecloths, too many wine glasses, the annual prime rib roast that cost more than my first paycheck. I sat in my usual corner seat, hoodie sleeves pulled over my hands, quiet as always. Gerald started drinking at 4. By 9:30, he was flushed, eyes glassy, voice loud enough to rattle the neighbors. He pushed his chair back, grabbed a spoon, and clinked his glass until every conversation died. "Another year almost gone," he boomed. "Some of us crushed it. Some of us, well, didn't." He turned and pointed his glass straight at me like a weapon. "Tatum, 26 years old, and still renting some crappy studio. When are you finally going to grow up and do something with your life?" Laughter rolled around the table. One of Gerald's golf buddies raised his glass and said, "Hear, hear." Diane stared at her plate, twisting her napkin. Sierra leaned back with that little half smirk she'd perfected years ago. Gerald wasn't done. He swept his arm toward her. "Look at your sister. Lake house, private dock, rooftop parties for 50 people. That's what winning looks like. Maybe take a few notes for once in your life." Sierra tilted her head, fake modest. "Actually, we're planning a full dock renovation this spring. New composite decking, built-in lighting, maybe a second-level bar with a fire pit. It's going to be insane." Jackson raised his glass to the queen and her kingdom. More laughter. Someone started a slow clap. The room tilted under me. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, opened the property management app, and turned the screen so the entire table could see. Lease agreement. Margaret Reeves. Irrevocable Asset Trust 2021. Primary tenant, Sierra Reeves. Previous co-tenant, Giselle Vaughn. Removed. Current unauthorized occupant, Jackson Holt. Balance due, $484. $400. Status, 4 months delinquent. I let the screen sit there for 5 full seconds. Then I spoke, slow and flat. "This is my house. I bought it in 2021. It's held in a trust, so my name never appears on anything public. Sierra applied to rent it in 2023. I personally approved the application. She has lived there for 2.5 years, posted like she owns it, and has not paid rent for the last 4 months. She currently owes me $48,400. I turned the phone slowly, making sure every single person could read the red overdue balance. The room went completely dead. Gerald's mouth opened, closed, opened again. His face cycled from drunk red to corpse purple. The wine glass in his hand shook so hard a drop splashed onto the white tablecloth. Sierra's smirk vanished. Her eyes filled instantly. You can't. The words choked off. Tears spilled down her cheeks in thick mascara rivers. Jackson froze with his glass halfway to his lips, eyes bouncing between the screen and me like he was waiting for the punchline. 40 full seconds of pure frozen silence. Even the grandfather clock seemed to stop ticking. I kept my voice completely level.
The lease converted to month the moment payment stopped. Under South Carolina law, I can terminate with 30 days written notice. That notice goes out tomorrow morning. You have exactly 30 days to vacate or pay every penny owed. Sierra found her voice, but it came out high and broken. You're my sister. How could you let me believe? How could you let everyone think? I looked her straight in the eye. You told everyone. I never said a word. Gerald slammed his fist on the table so hard the silverware jumped. Plates rattled. You hit this on purpose. You wanted to humiliate your own family on a holiday. I met his stare. Yes, I waited for the exact moment it would hurt the most. You handed me the perfect stage tonight, Dad. Thank you. Diane's hand flew to her mouth. One of the golf wives whispered, Oh my Lord. Someone's phone buzzed and nobody moved to answer it. Sierra was sobbing openly now, shoulders shaking. This is cruel. This is actually cruel. Jackson finally set his cracked glass down. You set her up. That's messed up, bro. I looked at him. No, she set herself up. The silence stretched another 10 seconds. I stood up, pushed my chair in, and walked toward the front door. My footsteps were the only sound in the house. Nobody tried to stop me. Nobody said a word. I opened the door, stepped out into the cold night air, and pulled it closed behind me with a soft click. Inside, Sierra's crying echoed down the hallway. It lasted a lot longer than 40 seconds. The morning after the dinner, I woke up feeling nothing at all. I opened the property management portal at 8:03 a.m., generated the official South Carolina notice to quit, filled in Sierra's name, the exact address, the $48,400 delinquency, and the 30-day deadline.
I had Lydia overnight at certified mail with return receipt. The same day, I filed the formal eviction action with the Lexington County Magistrate Court. The clock started ticking the moment the envelope was dropped in the mail. Sierra had exactly 31 days left in the house. She never paid a single dollar of the back rent, not 1 cent. Her credit score, which had been 742 when she moved in, collapsed under the weight of 4 months of missed payments, late fees, and the collection account I sent the debt to on day 32. By March, her FICO sat at 572. No landlord in North or South Carolina would rent to her without a cosigner, first and last month's rent, and a deposit equal to another full month. For the next 3 years, she bounced between temporary situations. 6 months on a pull-out couch in a 1-bedroom apartment in Greenville with an old sorority sister who finally asked her to leave. 9 months in a spare room at Jackson's cousin's townhouse in Charlotte until the cousin got engaged and needed the space. Then back to Columbia, sleeping on an air mattress in the den of a high school friend who felt sorry for her. Every move was smaller, cheaper, more humiliating than the last. Jackson lasted exactly 4 days after December 30th. On January 3rd, he packed his shaker bottles, his ring light kit, and his ego, posted one final shirtless mirror selfie with the caption, New year, new energy, no baggage, blocked Sierra on every platform, and vanished. She told anyone who would listen that he was scared of a strong woman. No one believed her. The story spread through Gerald's golf circle like wildfire. One of his buddies had filmed 28 seconds on his phone and dropped it in the club's WhatsApp group before dessert was served. By New Year's Day, every member knew the golden child had been squatting in her little sister's lake house and got exposed in front of the entire family.
Gerald stopped getting invited to the Saturday 7:30 a.m. tea times. When he showed up anyway, the ribbing was merciless. "Hey Jerry, how's the lake house treating you?" Followed by howls of laughter. He quit the club in April, sold his membership at a loss, and never stepped foot on that course again. For the next year, his name was poison at every clubhouse bar within 50 miles. Diane called me 19 times in the first 10 days. The voicemail started with shock, moved to tears, then bargaining, then anger, then tears again. The final one was 2 minutes and 14 seconds of quiet sobbing with no words. I listened to each one exactly once, then blocked the number. I blocked Gerald's cell, Sierra's cell, the house landline, every aunt, uncle, and cousin who tried to help us work it out. One by one, they all disappeared from my phone. Lydia relisted the house on March 15th. The market had flipped hard in the opposite direction. We received 14 offers in 5 days, 11 of them cash, 9 over asking. I accepted $2,740,000 from a cash buyer relocating from Silicon Valley. We closed April 12th. After paying off the remaining mortgage, Lydia's commission, and closing costs, the trust cleared $918,000 in profit. I wired it to a new account in Austin the same day. By May, I had accepted a principal engineer role at an Austin-based Series B company, fully remote again, with a signing bonus large enough to buy a downtown loft outright. I flew to Texas one long weekend, walked through 3 condos, put cash down on a 2-bedroom on the 22nd floor overlooking Lady Bird Lake, and never returned to the Carolinas. I changed my phone number the day I signed the purchase agreement. I deactivated every social media account that had ever carried my real name. I created new profiles under a variation no one from my old life would ever connect to me. I blocked every known email address, every old handle, every possible way they could reach me. They ceased to exist in my world. Sierra tried once, 8 months later, through a burner Instagram account with no profile picture. A 4-paragraph essay about family, forgiveness, and moving forward together. I read it, felt absolutely nothing, and hit block. Gerald mailed a 10-page handwritten letter to the P.O. box I still had in Charlotte. It arrived forwarded once before I closed the box forever. The letter was full of the usual lines about pride mistakes, blood being thicker than water. I scanned it into my computer, ran it through the shredder, and deleted the file. Diane sent one birthday card the following year to my old studio address that somehow still got forwarded. It came back returned to sender. No forwarding address. I never replied. I never will. I don't search their names. I don't look at their profiles through fake accounts. I don't drive past the old streets when I connect through Atlanta. I erase the entire state from my mental map. I lost a sister who was never really mine, parents who never really saw me, and an extended family that chose silence over justice. In exchange, I gained the only thing that ever mattered, complete, unbreakable freedom. I no longer have a biological family, but I have peace, safety, and the ability to breathe without waiting for the next comparison, the next dismissal, the next reminder that I was never enough. And that freedom is worth more than every dollar I made, every tear they cried, or every apology they will never mean. I have never regretted a single second of